These are two letters of mine that were printed, the first on the subject of the Rabin assassination, the second on the World Trade Center collapse. He would be a rash man indeed, he who would belittle a properly framed Pulsa curse. Leon Trotsky, Jerusalem Mayor Gershon Agron, Poale Aguda leader Benjamin Mintz, Jaffa building magnate Ariel Ragonis, Yitzhak Rabin and Ariel Sharon were all publicly imprecated by the chilling Pulsa ritual, and all were felled within the year that it is claimed to be effective, with Yitzhak Rabin dying 1 month to the day after the curse, and Ariel Sharon 6 months to the day. The Yiddish expression, even more than from Goyische Hent, save me Hashem from Yiddish Eugen, reminds one of how Russian scientists have shown that the human gaze has immense physical energy and that the eye emits high-frequency rays of wavelength 80 micrometers. Envy, jealousy, hatred, malice, contempt, hostility, astonishment, and exaggerated admiration all shed rays of malign influence and even of destruction with every glance. Every feeling of the human brain is transmitted through the eye. Quote from the Zohar, "Do not eat the bread in the home of someone who has an evil eye." And from the Gemara Bava Metzia, 99 of all men die from ayin hara, and only one dies from natural causes. Sora Imenu, Og, Bilam, Caesar, Oliver Cromwell, Pope Pius IX, Napoleon, and Hitler were all said to have possessed the ayin hara, the evil eye. The frequent public booings at the mention of Yitzhak Rabin's name 30 years on shows that his memory is not viewed with favor by all Israelis. Whilst recalling Rabin's plus points, it is unfortunate that in his last months he called critics of his peace policy munuvonim, degenerates. He labeled soldiers who refused to dismantle settlements as crybabies. He lambasted the Likud as being allies of Hamas. He called American Olim, American immigrants, foreign weeds. He told the settlers in Judea and Samaria to go and whirl like propellers. And he referred to the many Israelis who died in the 1994 bombings as korbanot l'shalom, sacrifices for peace. What a disgrace. When told by Israeli lawyers that in wanting to cede the Golan and recognizing the PLO, he was breaking his election promises and violating the Israeli Chok HaBegida, the Israeli law against treason, he declared, Hagolan hu lo Eretz HaKodesh, ze tankland, al tafriya li im chukiot. The Golan is not holy land, it is tankland. Don't bother me with legalities. And also he stated, Hatanach hu sefer chozim yashan umu'uvak she'ein lo mashma'ut lahayom. The Tanakh, our Bible, is a dusty old book of contracts that has no meaning for today. Ein lo mashma'ut lahayom. An even bigger disgrace. The same Yitzhak Rabin, who as chief of staff had a total nervous breakdown on the eve of the 1967 Six-Day War and was hors de combat, out of action through alcoholism for its duration, and who, before the Yom Kippur War, advised, quote, "There is no need to call up our forces when the enemy makes threats and deploys its forces along the ceasefire line. There is no danger. 3,500 Israeli dead and 10,000 wounded paid for this advice." Rabin recounted with pride in his autobiography his role in as commanding officer in giving the order to fire on the Alta Lena ship in June 1948 on Frishman Beach, in which 18 Etzel men were slaughtered and 34 wounded. His poor handling of the Harel Brigade led to the deaths of many hundreds of Jewish fighters during the 1948 War of Independence. Many hold Rabin blameworthy for incompetent orders during the siege of the Ma'alot at the Ma'alot massacre in 1974, where 22 children died. And there are many unanswered questions about Rabin's own death. The Rabin narrative raises many puzzling queries. Queries such as, number one, Rabin walking away totally unhurt from Yigal Amir's shots, when in fact he should have fallen as if poleaxed if he had really been shot in the spine. Number two, the absence of a single drop of blood at the scene, despite Rabin having been hit in the vascular spleen and lung. Number three, the incompetence of the 20 bodyguards attached to Rabin in allowing Yigal Amir a clear shot. Number four, the shouting by the bodyguards of "Srak, Srak, blanks, blanks, it's not real, it's only caps, and it's only an exercise," immediately after the shots were fired. Number five, the total absence of any trace of metal particles or gunpowder on Yigal Amir's hands, an impossibility if he had fired real bullets, but consistent with firing blanks. 6. How bodyguard Yoram Rubin really came to be shot in the elbow. How Rabin's limousine had an unidentified fourth occupant. How Rabin's chauffeur, Menachem Danti, took 22 minutes to travel only 600 yards to Ichilov Hospital. 22 minutes to travel 600 yards. 7. How the medical reports and Israeli police forensics state that Rabin was shot in the chest by 3 bullets fired point blank, one being from the front, not 2 at a distance from behind, as claimed by the Shamgar Commission, as well as numerous other ballistic inconsistencies. 8. How the police report gives the serial number of Amir's 9mm Beretta as D90555Y, when in fact it was D98321Y. 9. The mysterious suicide of Rabin's bodyguard Yoav Kuriel by 7 bullets to the chest. Yigal Amir's service as a Shabak agent in Latvia. The roles of Shabak agent provocateur Avishai Raviv, the then head of Shabak Carmi Gilon's presence in France at the time of the shooting and in the month leading up to it, and of Eli Barak, head of its Jewish department. 10. The role of Rabin's secretary Eitan Haber in clearing out Rabin's safe immediately after the shooting, and the theatrical public displaying of the blood-soaked Song of Peace song sheet. And 11. The release only after 2 months of the Kempler video and of the tamperings done to it, etc., etc. The second letter on the subject of 911. Major events like Pearl Harbor, the Kennedy assassination, the moon landings, the Rabin killing, the death of Princess Diana, promote conspiracy theories that at the very least give pause for thought. On the day of the 2001 skyjackings, the US Air Defense, by amazing coincidence, in inverted commas, happened to be running drills involving multiple hijackings of aircraft within the USA. This caused great confusion among air traffic controllers, preventing interception of the real hijackings. The Twin Towers were designed specifically to be able to withstand the impact of a Boeing-sized airliner without collapsing. Their destruction is indeed not blamed on the crashes, but on the fuel fire. But jet fuel is merely refined kerosene, that's paraffin in England, it burning at far below the melting point of steel, as can be seen by its innocuous use in millions of steel heaters and ovens everywhere. No steel frame building before or since has ever suffered structural collapse due to fire. Yet within 1 hour of the impacts, fires supposedly melted the massive steel column cores, 47 in each tower, the thickest and strongest ever used in construction, resulting in the obliterative pyroclastic collapse of a total of 267 floors in WTCs 1, 2, and 7, with WTC 7 not even being hit by an aircraft, all falling neatly into their own atomized footprints, anomalously at exactly the free fall acceleration due to gravity of 32 feet per second. Totally without resistance, as if nothing existed beneath them but air, and without leaving any of their steel skeleton standing. I myself witnessed the destruction of a 22-story apartment block in London in 1985. It disappeared literally in the blink of an eye, but only because explosives and thermite had been deliberately placed to destroy all critical support members simultaneously in a controlled demolition. Scientific analysis of the video footage shows the World Trade Center collapses to be eerily similar, replete with anomalous telltale puffs of explosions on the lower levels seconds before the cascades commenced. Perplexities such as 6 months before 9/11, the purchase of the entire asbestos-filled, loss-making World Trade Center complex for only $200 million, it being insured by its new owner for $7 billion, but solely against terrorist attack. The massive placing days before 9/11 of put options in American and United Airlines, the US president's strange behavior on being told in public of the attack, the initially contradictory statements of Osama bin Laden, the terrorist passports that survived fireballs and landed intact blocks away, whereas none of the 4 supposedly indestructible black boxes were ever found. The terrorist bag that did not make the flight, yet included the names and details of every hijacker. Cell phones working from 35,000 feet where they had never worked before. Untrained terrorist pilots who couldn't even start a Cessna suddenly being able to perform complex low-level corkscrew maneuvers in airliners at 500 miles per hour, something beyond even jet fighter aces. The statements by Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld that Flight 93, believed to be targeting the White House, didn't crash in Pennsylvania after passengers had stormed the cockpit, but had been, quote, shot down, and that the Pentagon had been, quote, hit by a missile, not Flight 77, etc., etc. This has all led many scientists, structural engineers, military leaders, members of Congress, 911 commissioners, victims' families, first responders, pilots and air traffic controllers to claim that others, apart from the terrorists, had foreknowledge of the attack. Among many speculations are false flag operations, whereby a ruling power stages attacks against its own assets or allies in order to further far-reaching agendas such as oil, corporate profits, invasions, and world hegemony. For example, Nero's burning of Rome, the USS Maine incident, the Mukden incident, the Reichstag fire, Operation Himmler, the Israeli Lavon affair, Operation Northwoods, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, the KGB bombings, etc. Quote, "This process of transformation is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor." Quote, from US government's Project for a New Century think tank in 2000, quote, "We are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis and the world will accept the new world order." David Rockefeller, 1994. Finally, it is interesting to note that the Zohar in Parshas Bolok states that on the 25th of Elul, 3 lofty towers in the city of Rome will collapse. The Vilna Gaon said that the date 25th of Elul should be corrected to read the 23rd of Elul, which in the year 2001 fell on September the 11th. The main miracle is that had the collapses occurred few hours later, there could have been 40,000 dead instead of the 3,000. Unfortunately, 400 of whom were Jews. Lo Aleinu.